Hey everybody, welcome to the channel.
Hey guys, we're your hosts, M and J.
And today the two of us are taking a look at episode 3 of season 2 of Netflix's She-Ra.
This episode gave us a bit of world building, which is something that's good for the show, but the plot's a little thin. Once again, there's an A and a B plot, one following the heroes and another following the villains. And the villain plot ends up being more interesting, with our heroes mostly just fumbling around a deserted town. Kind of feels like they got the short end of the stick.
This episode opens with Hordak working on an experiment, only for it to blow up in his face. It's nice to see Hordak actually doing something instead of just sitting in his chair all day like he usually does. But his failure causes him to storm out of the room, even pushing Imp away in frustration. Imp can record and play back what other people say, so he repeats Hordak's frustrations, but I'm not sure if he's talking to the machine or if he's talking in general. In the meantime, our heroes are traveling and they're talking about Entrapta. Adora can't believe that Entrapta would betray them like that. She says that Shadow Weaver must have messed with her mind, but Glimmer says that Entrapta just wants to be with the Horde now. But Entrapta said she was just on the side of science. She was kinda iffy on the actual Horde. And then they just kind of accepted that. Glimmer says that the Horde has better technology than they do, but what about Light Hope? They literally work with First One's tech. They didn't even try to convince Entrapta. They just walked away from her. Glimmer says it doesn't matter because they have magic on their side, but the Horde still has the Black Garnet, and they were using magic when Shadow Weaver was around, but they might not know she's been demoted and locked up. Bo says that magic and tech aren't so different, and that Entrapta is the only person who's ever come close to combining them, and that losing her to the Horde is actually a problem. But Bo tries to play it off saying it's fine because he's there, and he can just take over, as his arrow bursts into flames. If Bo's going to take on this role, I think we need to see him working on tech. We've seen him working on his arrows, but there is going to be more to this than just his arrows. Plus, that's something he's worked with his whole life. He needs to branch out from that. We've seen him opening up robots, but I don't think you really need to be a tech guy to do that. I think that we really need to see him working on new tech instead of being told that he's doing it. Swiftwind comes back from scouting ahead, saying that the village is close by. Even though Swiftwind doesn't know what they're talking about and his arrival pretty much changes the tone of this scene, Glimmer keeps talking about Entrapta, saying that she made her decision and they can't change that. Even though they maybe could if they would actually reach out to her. Hey Entrapta, wanna meet Light Hope? Hey Entrapta, did you know that Adora can read First One's language? If Entrapta really wants to unlock the mysteries of Etheria, Light Hope would be her best bet. I'd actually like to see that because I would also like to know more about Etheria's past. But instead our heroes are totally resigned to Entrapta being with the Horde. But Glimmer continues saying they lost contact with a farming outpost called Alwyn a week ago, and they need to figure out what's going on, since the Horde hasn't been reported in the area. But Adora believes that it is the Horde because they're always up to something. Glimmer has a line of dialogue where she says that Alwyn is the rebellion's biggest supplier of supplies, as if she doesn't actually know what they supply. I really think this wasn't a good line for her because she's the leader of the rebellion. As the leader, she really needs to be on top of things. She needs to know where her supplies are coming from and what supplies are coming from where. It makes her look really irresponsible, but then she says that Alwyn is an orchard, so she does know what they supply. So what was the point of that line? I really think that these scripts need more work before they go to animate them. Little things like this are really holding the show back. But Glimmer says that even though the Horde has Entrapta, they can still beat them by doing what they always do, which is sticking together and never giving up, even though they gave up on Entrapta almost immediately. You know, for a show that's all about the power of friendship, you'd think they'd dig a little deeper here. Just saying. They walk off towards the village, but rustling in the trees makes Adora suspicious, and after what happened at Mysticor, she should probably follow her instinct. It seems like this plot is meant to be the kind of Halloween special, the one episode that's a little bit more creepy than what we usually get for a show like this. I'm okay with this trope, but why would you travel at night in the first place, especially to somewhere that's supposedly haunted? We've never seen them travel at night before. Swiftwind says that he's sensing something, but he can't really describe what it is, which is convenient for the mystery. They then arrive at the outpost, only to find it deserted and basically a ghost town, and Glimmer comments how creepy it feels. Again, I'm not sure why they're traveling at night. Was it just for the atmosphere? They don't see anyone in the town, so they start to get suspicious. Bo says that he's updated his tracker pad pad to scan for Horde signals, so he can use that technology to figure out if the Horde is really here or not. Unfortunately, we didn't actually get to see him experimenting on this, but at least he's making some kind of effort to be the new tech guy, even if it was off screen. Unfortunately, the tracker pad doesn't seem to be working, and Bo says he doesn't know how to fix it, but Glimmer's still optimistic about them being able to solve this, even if there are stories about Alwyn being haunted. Adora tells them about how Shadow Weaver would tell her scary stories back when she was with the Horde, stories like the Weeping Princess and the Headless Princess, among others, all of which were princess related. Bo comments that there's a theme throughout all of Adora's stories, which Adora admits that she never actually noticed before. You'd think with all this anti-princess propaganda, the Horde wouldn't actually want to work with princesses like Scorpion and Trapta. They always use princesses as targets when they're training, so isn't it awkward for the Horde to answer to princesses? But we never get to see anything like that, even though there is potential there, like if they refuse to answer to Scorpia because she's a princess, or refusing to work with Entrapta, what kind of conflict would that cause? But they walk off into town only for the camera to hold on the forest, and we see this mysterious figure come into frame. So the whole plot with the heroes is basically them just fumbling around a ghost town, trying to figure out what to do. Not unlike the last episode where Adora and Swiftwind were fumbling around a field also trying to figure out what to do. So that's kind of disappointing. The Horde plot is actually much more interesting. Back in the Fright Zone, Catra goes to see Hordak. Apparently he didn't summon her and she just wants to check in, the way that Shadow Weaver used to. But Hordak isn't happy being disturbed, and berates her for bothering him with nothing. She says it's not nothing because the Horde is in a better position than ever, and she wants to plan their next move. But Hordak interrupts her and starts berating her for letting the Whispering Woods grow back and also getting captured last episode. He activates a machine and tells her that Etheria's atmosphere has been causing problems for his experiments. He says he needs to remove it and the machine sucks the atmosphere from the area, causing Catra to suffocate. I guess he doesn't need to breathe. But when he sees Catra suffocating, he calls her pathetic, just like everything else on this backwards planet. He turns the machine off saying her performance has been lacking, but that never bothered him before. We've been saying that from the beginning. He gave her 2 promotions after 2 failures, and Shadow Weaver took credit for what happened at the prom, and also the fall when it didn't work out, but he never seemed to care about her failures before, so why is he torturing her now? Did he just want to test the machine? But I don't think it's a good idea to test it on your second in command. You probably don't even need to test it on anybody to know if it's working. Don't you have sensors for that? I know sometimes big bad guys do stuff like this, but we've never seen Hordak do anything like this before. Usually he just sits around in his chair or yells, or both. I think the worst we've seen him do is just throw Shadow Weaver in a cell, but that was after she disobeyed direct orders and attacked everyone. He tells her that something is a failure when it no longer has any worth. She insists that she hasn't failed yet because no one knows how to take the princesses down better than her. And really, her getting captured worked out in the Horde's favor. She was in control the whole time. It was more like they were stuck with her instead of her being stuck with them. She got in their heads, she manipulated them, she hurt them by showing them that Entrapta was with the Horde now. This was really a win for the Horde, other than her accidentally getting stung by Scorpia, but that'll wear off. So the one time that she actually kinda didn't fail is when he's mad at her. I'm glad that we're seeing more of Hordak, but this wasn't set up properly. Feels like it came out of left field. He tells her that if she can really defeat the rebellion, she needs to prove it, and dismisses her, while Imp plays the word pathetic over and over again. Catra goes to plan her next move, but she's being stopped by paperwork. Some of the Horde forces are refusing to fight because they don't have armor, but the armory is out of armor. Catra makes a comment that Shadow Weaver probably never had to deal with any of this, but Scorpia points out that these are actually her files, so she probably did. I do think it's good for Catra to see another side of Shadow Weaver. They get interrupted by Entrapta, who's looking for a specific tool to fix a wobbly desk in her lab. Catra tells her to make do with what she has, but Entrapta says it's the principle of the thing. I would have thought Entrapta would use her hair for most everything, but she says it's fine and she saw one in Hordak's lab, so she'll just go take that one. Catra demands that Entrapta not go to Hordak's sanctum. Can't say I blame her after what happened earlier, but Entrapta isn't listening, so Catra makes her promise that she'll stay away from Hordak. They get interrupted by Scorpia, who tells them that the reason that the armory is out of armor is because
because they're out of the material to make the armor. Catra tells Scorpia to keep an eye on Entrapta while she handles this armor situation, but Scorpia loses track of Entrapta immediately.
Meanwhile, our heroes are investigating the ghost town. There's no signs of a struggle, and there's cold food on some of the tables, so they must have left in a hurry. They're really jumpy about everything, but it probably would have helped if they hadn't come at night. I get they're trying to go for a creepy vibe in this unknown location, but the whole thing just feels kind of forced because of it. Bo notices there's a spire in the middle of the town that he says looks kind of familiar, but they get too spooked to investigate further. They walk off insisting they need to get to the bottom of this, and we see another mysterious figure walk across the screen.
Back in the Fright Zone, Entrapta goes into Hordak's lab even though she was told specifically not to, and she knows she was told specifically not to. She sees the tool she needs, but she gets distracted by Hordak's experiment. Something goes wrong with it, and Hordak starts smashing his fists against the desk screaming, and storms out in a huff. Entrapta makes a wise comment that failure is nothing to get huffy about because it's actually a vital part of the scientific endeavor. I can agree with that, but she also makes the decision that she has to stay for the sake of science. So she's only here for the science, and she has no concern with the actual conflict.
Back in the ghost town, they come to the conclusion that the place is abandoned. You don't say. But a sudden noise pierces through the air. Adora comments that it sounds like somebody is singing, although it sounds more like a ghastly howl to me. They get freaked out again and finally see one of these mysterious figures walking through the forest. Adora transforms into She-Ra to confront it, but she just ends up flailing her sword wildly as the mysterious figure disappears. They try to chase after it only for a bunch of them to appear all at once, despite the fact that there had been pretty limited activity up until this point. They all start panicking and doubting themselves, She-Ra saying that she can't handle this, Glimmer saying that Catra was right and that she is terrible as a leader, and Bo says that he can't replace Entrapta and he can't even fix his tracker pad, and Swiftwind blurts out that he's still hearing noises from the spire. I don't know why he didn't just say that to begin with, but here we are. But Bo figures out that they aren't dangerous while She-Ra continues to attack them. Her sword ends up causing a reaction in the environment, revealing these tracks on the ground. Bo figures out they're actually holograms running on a loop. They investigate the beacon and it turns out that it's actually an antenna, and that this place is built on a First One's ruin. Bo says it's probably a First One's communication hub and that it must have activated when the Black Garnet threw the world into chaos. I guess I'll take his word for it, but how does he really know that? Did anything else activate when the Black Garnet was hacked? He says the hub must be trying to send old stored messages. She-Ra is surprised to find out that these are First Ones because she had built them up in her mind as some big epic figures, but they're just normal people. Yeah, you should see them in the original. I think big and epic is a suitable way to describe them. She says that their lives were interrupted because of what Mara did to the planet. I hope that we get Mara's side of the story. I don't feel right blaming her for everything. We don't even really know her. Maybe there's more to the story than what Lighthope told us. Madame Raz talked about her in a very affectionate way, but we haven't seen Madame Raz since episode 3. She-Ra powers down the antenna and the holograms disappear, so Bo says they can get a message out to tell everyone that it's safe to return. Glimmer praises Bo, saying that he'll do just fine as their tech guy, but then a strange message pops up on his tracker pad. He says it looks like First One's writing, but She-Ra can't read it because it's too degraded, so Glimmer says his pad must be broken like he said earlier. But then somewhere in some far-off desert that we've never seen before, a screen glows with that same writing. I'm not sure what they're implying with this. Is his pad connected to it? Hopefully this will get sorted out. But for now, this is all we get. But that was the hero's plot. We got a bit of world building. We learned a little bit about the First Ones. Apparently they're not fire people, but I don't know if it was enough world building to justify an entire subplot to it. I wish there was more going on than them just running around this abandoned town. But back in the Fright Zone, Entrapta takes it upon herself to fix Hordak's experiment. Hordak initially threatens her about this, but she ignores him to finish the job before leaving. Hordak tests the machine and realizes that what Entrapta did was effective, and it's actually working now. So apparently it wasn't an atmospheric problem, he was just using the wrong chords, since Entrapta says that she replaced them and now it's working fine. Entrapta pops in again, revealing that she hadn't actually left, and that she wants to help Hordak with his experiments, since she understands that what he made was a power source and wants to know what he's going to use it for. It's kind of jarring
confusing because earlier in this episode we saw Hordak try to suffocate Catra, and now he's being treated as if he's a comedic villain. It's weird that this is in the same episode. It feels like his character is at the mercy of the plot. Whenever they want him to be scary and menacing and actually threatening, they'll go with that version of Hordak, but when they want him to be more comedic, they'll go with that. It ends up being really inconsistent, and it makes it hard for the audience to get an actual reading on him. Initially, he's not on board with her help, but Entrapta realizes that he's working with portals based on the formulas he's using. Entrapta is shocked by this, saying that portals are only theoretical, and no one's ever actually been able to achieve one, but Hordak says that anyone from a backwater planet like Etheria would assume that. Entrapta doesn't appreciate being insulted and insists that she's the one who got his power source working, so she demands he tell her everything. When Hordak explains that portals are real, Entrapta gets extremely excited to the point where she starts hyperventilating, saying they can open a portal from one side of the planet to the other, but Hordak explains that he has much bigger plans than that, and he plans on going to other worlds. Well, great, now she'll never come back to the rebellion. They really missed their chance. I don't even know if telling her that Adora can read First One's language will be enough to persuade her anymore. Not after this portal thing. Well, maybe there is still a chance if they would just talk to her about it. Why does nobody communicate? Entrapta is shocked to find out there are other planets with intelligent life, and Hordak insults Etheria and Entrapta more, saying that it's the only place he's encountered that doesn't understand that fact. Despite this, Entrapta's still extremely excited to get to work, asking if he's been to other planets. Hordak confirms this by giving this really creepy smile. I don't know, something about this shot just kind of rubs me the wrong way, like he's gonna eat her or something. He does look like a space vampire. Hordak calling Etheria a backwater planet isn't really fair because they got thrown into a pocket dimension. It's not surprising that they don't know about this stuff, but I wonder how much of Etheria's history he actually knows. If he's an alien from another planet that somehow got stuck here, then that probably explains why the Horde doesn't know about the first ones. Also, on a side note, back in episode 8 there was a throwaway line about Sweet Bee. We didn't bring it up at the time because it wasn't important to the plot, but based on this new information it becomes a plot hole. In the original cartoon, Sweet Bee was an alien who came to Etheria after her original home became uninhabitable, but if Etheria is stuck in a pocket dimension, that means that can't be the case anymore. So how can she be on Etheria? I guess they just gave her a new backstory, but they could have replaced that name drop with a different character that would have fit their story better, because Sweet Bee as an alien doesn't make sense in this narrative. Catra goes to Shadow Weaver as a last resort after contacting every mine under Horde control and not finding the material that they need to make the armor. She demands to know where the missing file is and claims that Shadow Weaver is doing this on purpose to try to sabotage her, but Shadow Weaver explains calmly that the material is actually mined right here in the Fright Zone. But then why are they out if it's made right here? Catra starts to leave, but Shadow Weaver taunts her, saying that being her wasn't exactly what Catra had imagined, was it? And that she probably thought that Hordak would let her run things. Not sure how you could blame her when Hordak kept favoring her like that. Catra claims that he does let her run things, but Shadow Weaver isn't buying it, saying that she shouldn't take it personally because Hordak never trusted her with his real plans either. Catra claims that Hordak might not have trusted Shadow Weaver, but he does trust her, but Shadow Weaver still isn't buying it. And neither are we, since he tried to suffocate her earlier. Scorpia catches up with Catra and tells her that she's found the missing file, but Catra already got the information she needed from Shadow Weaver, and she's more concerned about where Entrapta is right now. Scorpia admits that she lost track of her, so the two run off to try to find her. They burst into Hordak's lab apologizing for Entrapta's intrusion, but Hordak demands that they leave, saying that he's working with Entrapta now. Entrapta whispers to Emily about never having a lab partner before, so Scorpia and Catra leave after Imp hisses at them, and that's the episode. The pacing is pretty slow and not a lot happened for most of the episode, but at least it took a couple steps forward plot-wise. I'm glad we finally got to see more of Hordak, but we got two very different depictions of him in the same episode. First he's cold and threatens to murder his second-in-command, and then he's comedic and can't handle one princess. It was such a jarring tonal shift. Plus Hordak is pretty inconsistent in his characterization. He's always looked the other way when it comes to Catra's failures, but now he's threatening her life over it. Where did that come from? Also, if Hordak just wants off this planet, why is he wasting so much time trying to conquer it? Wouldn't it make more sense to put all of his time and resources and energy into getting this portal machine to work?
It would be nice if they focused more on the world building and lore of Etheria instead of just giving us little bits and pieces here and there. And they spend a lot of time getting these little bits and pieces, so there's all this build up but not a lot of payoff. It would be cool to learn more about the first ones. In the original show, they weren't really focused on, they were just a part of the world at large. So there's a lot of room for them to explore in this reboot. And the show keeps telling us that they're going to do that, but instead the characters just stumble into the plot, and everything's really dragged out.
But that's just our opinion. What do you guys think?
Are you guys happy with the amount of lore we're getting in the show, or are you disappointed like us?
Let us know in the comments below.
We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone!
Bye guys!